bourbon must be at least 51% corn, and it needs to be aged in charred oak barrels. While whiskey can be up to 94.8 ABV, alcohol by volume, bourbon cannot exceed 80% ABV. Furthermore, bourbon can only be labeled as such if it was made in the United States. Bourbon with no age statement on the label must be aged for at least 4 years in fresh, toasted casks made from American white oak. In the bourbon world, the casks used are particularly important, which we will get into later. Straight bourbons, on the other hand, must be aged for no less than 2 years and can have no added coloring or flavoring. In contrast, blended bourbon can have added coloring, flavoring, and other spirits, as long as 51% of the mixture is straight bourbon. There are 3 basic types of bourbon. There's traditional, wheat, and rye. The grain mash in traditional bourbon must be more than 70% corn, with the remaining mash made of equal parts rye and barley. Traditional bourbons, such as Jim Beam, Wild Turkey, and Nom Creek, have a flavor balanced by both sweet and spice. Wheat bourbon uses more than 70% corn and equal parts wheat and barley. Using wheat instead of rye makes the bourbon sweeter than traditional bourbons. Examples of wheat bourbons are Maker's Mark, Four Roses, and Old Fitzgerald. Bourbon can be further categorized into small batch, single barrel, unfiltered, and blended. While there is no standardized rule for what verifies a small batch is generally assumed to be less than 100 barrels. These whiskeys are meant to be special. Here, the desire of the makers is to make a high-quality whiskey that is unique. Here, the aim is to highlight the nuances of that particular batch of whiskey, instead of being blended to attain a standard flavor profile. Most of the whiskeys you buy are like the former, where whiskeys are blended using different barrels to end up with what is still a high-quality product, but is more uniform. This is so that every time you go to the store and buy a bottle of your favorite brand, you know exactly what to expect and you know exactly what you're getting for taste. Single barrel bourbons take the concept of a unique experience to another level. Single barrel bourbon means just what it says. The whiskey in that particular bottle came from one single cask. This makes a bourbon particularly attractive because each barrel lends a unique taste, aroma, and color to the final product. These bottles from small batches and single barrel are harder to come by. There are also things that the distiller isn't trying to slip by you. They are often very proud of their small batch and single barrel products. And almost always, the label will explicitly state if they are either one of these things. You'll also see a marked price increase from the regular stock. Are they worth it? Well, maybe not in the beginning if you're just starting your journey when all whiskeys taste the same. But as you grow along your journey, tracking down a small batch or a single barrel bourbon may be just worth it for you. Another difference you will see is the debate of filtered versus unfiltered bourbons. The process of cold filtering the whiskey involves cooling the whiskey down before pouring it out of the cask. And it may or may not involve an actual charcoal or different filtering apparatus. Unfiltered bourbons have a hazy appearance, while filtered bourbons look crystal clear. The difference is particularly noticeable when the whiskey is chilled or water is added. Some argue unfiltered bourbons are more flavorful because nothing has been filtered out in the production process. However, in today's market, the vast majority of bourbons are cold filtered, as the majority of consumers might be put off by a cloudy drink. And the potential loss of flavor is negligible for most of us, and it's really only noticeable to people who really know their bourbon. If and when you encounter an unfiltered whiskey, they will usually alert you to the fact on the bottle. Blended bourbons must be at least 51% straight bourbon, but can contain added coloring and flavoring. As a general rule, blended bourbons are of a lower quality. This is because the final product in the bottle can be engineered, altered, or otherwise tampered with. As we'd say it, it's hard to discern a quality whiskey when the flavor is covered up by cinnamon or the taste of maple syrup. However, there are blended bourbons that can hold their own, so the old adage, "don't knock it till you've tried it," comes into play. Rye whiskey is made with a grain mash of at least 51% rye and must be matured in oak casks for a minimum of 2 years. Rye whiskeys such as Bulleit, Basil Hayden's, and Woodford Reserve are known for their bite. Tennessee whiskey, such as Jack Daniel's, is similar to other American-made bourbons, with the exception that Tennessee whiskey has to be charcoal filtered through sugar maple before being filled into the casks. This makes Tennessee whiskey particularly saccharine.